Welcome to Easy English, your go-to channel for improving your English and life.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Easy English, your favorite channel for improving your English and changing your life. In today's installment, we're diving into the fascinating world of self-discipline.
That's right. We're going to try and get beyond just the surface idea of self-discipline. We'll explore some, really actionable strategies for cultivating it.
Yeah, and maybe touch on how our brains actually handle these kinds of habit shifts.
Exactly, how the brain gets involved.
Absolutely. And I think it's key to understand this isn't about becoming like super strict or denying yourself everything enjoyable.
No, not at all. It's much more about intentionally building habits, cultivating a mindset that really propels you toward your goals.
Sort of like designing your life for success, maybe, one deliberate choice at a time.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. At its core, what are we really talking about when we say self-discipline?
Fundamentally, self-discipline is the capacity to maintain your focus, stay driven, remain dedicated to your objectives. And this consistent commitment, it naturally leads to making more effective choices and over time, developing beneficial habits. It's like your inner compass keeping you aligned.
And this isn't just some nice-to-have idea, right? It has real, tangible consequences in our lives.
Oh, absolutely. It's a cornerstone of, both personal and professional achievement. You could think of it as the engine that allows you to realize your full potential, really, in whatever area you focus on. And it's interesting, studies have actually shown a really strong correlation between self-discipline and positive life outcomes, sometimes even more so than just raw intelligence.
Wow. Okay, so it's not just about hitting a specific target, but it's more about the ongoing process itself.
Precisely. It's about establishing those consistent routines and nurturing a productive way of thinking in your everyday life. Achieving goals often just becomes a natural consequence of that consistent, disciplined approach.
Like laying a solid foundation.
Exactly. A foundation for everything you want to build.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we actually start putting this self-discipline thing into action in our daily lives?
Well, a crucial element involves consciously structuring your environment, making it work for you, not against you.
How so?
This means not only setting clear, specific objectives, but also making intentional decisions every day that support that bigger vision you have for yourself. It's about becoming the architect of your own success in a way.
It definitely sounds like it's a gradual process, but like growth.
Exactly. It's all about consistent forward momentum. And it's really important to remember you're not aiming for some overnight transformation into a perfect model of control.
Right.
Self-discipline is a skill. You strengthen it, you refine it over time through deliberate, consistent effort. Think of it like learning a musical instrument. It takes practice, dedication.
Now, the term willpower often comes up when we talk about this. Are they the same thing? Interchangeable?
They're definitely related, but distinct. Picture willpower as maybe a more immediate force. That sudden burst of resolve you might summon to resist a quick temptation.
Okay, like resisting that piece of cake right now.
Exactly. Self-discipline, though, is more that enduring, sustained ability to manage your actions, your emotions, even your thoughts, all in service of your more distant goals, your bigger aspirations.
So willpower is like a quick jolt of energy, and self-discipline is more like a reliable, long-lasting power source.
That's a really helpful way to visualize it, yeah. Self-discipline is what gets you to stick to the training plan, even on those days you really don't feel like it. It's that unwavering commitment that persists even when your initial excitement starts to fade. And interestingly, research suggests that while willpower can feel like a limited resource sometimes, in the short term.
Yeah, it feels like it runs out.
Right. But consistently practicing self-discipline can actually strengthen your overall capacity for it over the long haul.
Okay, so we have a clearer picture of what self-discipline is. But why should we even bother? Why invest the energy to develop it? What's the big why behind the effort?
The why. Having a truly compelling why is absolutely essential. It's the fuel, really, that powers your discipline.
Right.
You need to dig deep, ask yourself some potentially challenging questions, like, what specific outcome are you genuinely striving for? What does success in this area actually look and feel like to you?
And how life gets better.
Yes, and crucially, how will your life tangibly improve once you achieve it? Without a strong why, discipline can easily just feel like a chore, a burden.
So it's about forging that clear connection between the daily grind, the effort, and the ultimate payoff.
Precisely. When you have that vivid, compelling understanding of your why, self-discipline stops feeling like this restrictive obligation. It becomes more like a purpose-driven mission. It gives you that internal resilience, that grit to persevere when challenges inevitably pop up. Knowing your why turns obstacles from roadblocks into just detours on your chosen path.
Okay, our why is crystal clear. We're motivated. Now, how do we practically start cultivating this? Because, overhauling everything at once feels incredibly overwhelming.
Oh, it absolutely is. That's a very common feeling. And trying to change everything simultaneously is often, frankly, a surefire path to burnout.
Yeah, been there.
We all have. The key is to start remarkably small. Concentrate on integrating just one tiny, consistent habit into your daily routine. The beauty of starting small is that it kind of bypasses a lot of that initial resistance we feel towards big changes.
Give us some examples, like really tangible, tiny habits.
Okay, think about committing to just, say, 5 minutes of focused stretching each morning. Or maybe making a conscious effort to drink 1 extra glass of water every day. Simple.
Okay.
If you want to write more, it could be as simple as pledging to write just 50 words every day. The focus here is purely on consistency, not intensity, especially at the start.
That sounds way less intimidating than, I'm going to run a marathon next month or write a novel in a week.
Exactly. These seemingly insignificant, consistent wins, they're remarkably potent. Not only are they easier to stick with initially, but they also start to build momentum. And crucially, they start to subtly rewire your brain.
How so?
They wire it for the feeling of regularity, of accomplishment. Each tiny success reinforces the belief that you can follow through.
I like that idea of momentum. It's like pushing a big ball, right? Hard to start, but easier once it's rolling.
Precisely. Like a flywheel.
Now, lots of people put huge emphasis on setting big, ambitious goals. Is that always the best place to start, or should we think differently?
Well, having clear goals definitely provides direction. But solely fixating on the outcome, the end result, can sometimes be discouraging, especially if progress feels slow or the goal seems really far off.
Yeah, that can kill motivation.
It really can. So a more effective strategy for actually fostering self-discipline is to prioritize building robust systems rather than just focusing on the end goals themselves.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the difference between a goal and a system here?
Think of it like this. A goal is the specific result you want to achieve, maybe learning a new language.
Oh,
The system, on the other hand, is the collection of processes and habits that will actually get you there. So for language learning, your system might include dedicating 15 minutes each day to vocabulary practice, maybe having a weekly chat with a native speaker, doing 1 online lesson per week.
Ah, I see. So the goal is the destination, like Paris. And the system is the daily driving, the map, the car maintenance needed to actually get to Paris.
Precisely. That's a great analogy. When you have well-defined systems in place, the disciplined actions become significantly easier, more automatic almost.
Right.
This structured approach helps minimize what psychologists call decision fatigue. You're not constantly debating, should I do this now? How should I do it? The system provides the framework, frees up mental energy.
That resonates, because sometimes just deciding what to do feels like half the battle.
It really does.
Okay, so we've talked internal motivation, the why, and setting up systems. What about our external world, our surroundings?
Yeah.
How much impact does our environment actually have on our ability to be disciplined?
Oh, a tremendous influence. Your environment shapes your behavior much more than most of us realize. It's often far more effective to proactively design your surroundings for success than it is to just rely on your internal willpower to constantly fight temptations.
Seriously.
Seriously, research in behavioral science overwhelmingly supports this.
So it's about making the good choice the easy choice, the path of least resistance.
Exactly that. Instead of constantly battling a tempting environment, you strategically remove those temptations.
Okay, practical examples.
Sure, get the unhealthy snacks out of the pantry if healthy eating is your goal. Use website blocking software on your computer if you get easily distracted online. Create a dedicated, clean workspace if you want to focus better.
It's almost like setting up a default setting for the behavior you want.
Precisely. You're essentially making the path aligned with your goals the easiest one to follow. By minimizing that friction, you make disciplined action the more natural outcome.
Now, another interesting idea I've heard is linking new habits to ones we already have. How does that work for building discipline?
Ah, that's a powerful technique. It leverages triggers and routines, often called habit stacking. The core idea is simple. Take a behavior you already do consistently, that's your reliable trigger.
Like brushing my teeth?
Perfect example, brushing your teeth. And then you immediately follow it with the new behavior you want to adopt. This basically hooks the new habit onto the brain's existing neural pathways.
Okay, can you give some more examples of how someone might use this?
Certainly. So if you want to start a short mindfulness practice, you could decide. Immediately after I make my morning coffee, that's the established habit, the trigger, I will spend 1 minute focusing on my breath. Or after you finish lunch trigger, you could make it a routine to then spend 5 minutes tidying your desk. Or maybe after you sit down in your favorite armchair in the evening trigger, you read for 10 minutes before you turn on the TV, the new routine.
So you're essentially piggybacking the new habit onto one that's already automatic.
Precisely. It makes the new disciplined behavior feel much more natural, more integrated into your day. It doesn't feel like this extra separate thing you have to force yourself to remember. It uses the brain's tendency to link actions together.
Okay, so we're starting small, building systems, designing our environment, stacking habits. How do we know if any of this is actually working? Is tracking progress useful?
Tracking progress is absolutely vital. There's a saying, what gets measured gets managed. And often improved.
Right.
There are loads of ways to do it. A physical journal, a habit tracking app on your phone, even just marking off days on a calendar. The specific method isn't really the most important part. It's the act of consistent monitoring.
And what's the main benefit of actually seeing that progress laid out?
Well, seeing your consistency visually can be incredibly motivating. It gives you tangible proof of your effort. Plus, it helps you spot patterns. Maybe you always miss your workout on Fridays, or you struggle with your writing goal midweek.
So you can adjust.
Exactly. And the key here is to aim for consistent effort, not unattainable perfection. Missing a day here and there, it's normal, it happens. The crucial thing is to just acknowledge it without beating yourself up and get right back on track with the next opportunity.
That's a really reassuring way to look at it. It's about the overall trend, not every single data point being perfect.
Precisely.
Now, a big part of self-discipline often involves resisting immediate pleasure for some longer-term reward. That delay, how can we get better at that?
Practicing delayed gratification. That's a fundamental pillar, really, of self-discipline. It's essentially about training yourself to consciously resist those immediate, short-term goodies in favor of achieving more significant, lasting benefits down the road. This ability to prioritize the future reward over the instant one is a hallmark of effective self-management.
That can be a real struggle sometimes, though. Any practical tips for building up that mental muscle?
Definitely. Start with small, manageable exercises, things you can actually succeed at. For instance, try intentionally waiting an extra 15 minutes before you check your social media notifications in the morning.
Okay, doable.
Or maybe postpone that mid-afternoon snack by just half an hour. If you see something online you want to buy impulsively, try adding it to a wish list and just waiting 24 hours before deciding.
Let the impulse cool down.
Exactly. Over time, these small, deliberate acts of resistance, they strengthen your mental fortitude. Your capacity to resist stronger impulses grows, keeping you aligned with those bigger, long-term objectives.
It really is like a mental workout for impulse control.
It is.
Now, what happens when we inevitably mess up? Because, let's face it, we're human.
Yeah.
We stumble.
Absolutely. Setbacks are, well, they're just an inherent and unavoidable part of any meaningful journey. Self-discipline isn't about being relentlessly harsh with yourself when those slips happen.
Okay.
It's about cultivating a stance of, let's say, self-compassion combined with firm accountability. And interestingly, research actually shows that self-compassion makes us more likely to get back on track, not less.
So no beating ourselves up.
Definitely not. Instead of dwelling on the mistake and getting lost in negative self-talk, ask yourself some constructive questions like, okay, what specific factors contributed to this? What can I actually learn from this experience? And crucially, what is the very next small positive step I can take to get back on my path? Think of self-discipline as an ongoing internal dialogue. It's a process of learning and tweaking, not some rigid set of unbreakable rules.
That feels much more sustainable and frankly more encouraging.
It is.
Now, we've focused a lot on our own actions and mindset, but what about the people around us, our social circle? Does who we spend time with influence our discipline?
Oh, profoundly. There's that old saying, right? You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And that definitely holds true for self-discipline.
Really?
Yeah. If you want to cultivate more discipline in your own life, consciously seek out and nurture relationships with people who already demonstrate those qualities. Surrounding yourself with disciplined folks creates this powerful, positive, peer influence.
Okay, so how can we actively do that, practically speaking?
Well, you could consider joining groups or communities online or offline that are focused on your goals. Think running clubs, writing groups, professional networks.
Makes sense.
Sharing your goals and your struggles with an accountability partner can be incredibly valuable. Just having someone to check in with provides support, encouragement, motivation, and even intentionally following people on social media or other platforms who inspire you with their disciplined approach that can have a subtle but positive effect on your own mindset.
So our environment includes people too.
Absolutely. Your environment definitely includes the people you choose to surround yourself with. So actively cultivate a supportive ecosystem.
That's a really insightful point. Consciously creating that supportive network. Yeah. Now, another thing that motivates people is rewards. How do rewards fit into building self-discipline?
Positive reinforcement is a remarkably effective strategy for solidifying new habits. When you consistently stick to your routines and make real progress, it's important to acknowledge and reward that effort.
But there's a catch, right?
Yes, the crucial element is to pick rewards that don't actually undermine your progress. The reward should ideally align with your overall goals or at least not contradict them.
So celebrating a week of healthy eating with a massive pizza binge probably isn't the best strategy.
Exactly. Probably not the most helpful reward in that case. Instead, think about rewards that are, congruent with your overall well-being. For instance, after a week of really focused work, maybe you reward yourself by watching an episode of your favorite show, guilt-free. After hitting a big fitness milestone, perhaps a relaxing massage is a fitting reward. Or simply scheduling a genuine rest day after a period of sustained, diligent effort.
Okay.
The key is to link the experience of being disciplined with positive feelings, with joy, not just with deprivation or constant sacrifice.
That definitely makes the whole process feel more sustainable and enjoyable.
Which is essential for sticking with it long term.
Now, this idea of identity-based habits sounds really powerful. Could you elaborate on what that means?
Sure. Building identity-based habits means deeply integrating your desired habits into your core sense of self, who you believe you are.
Okay.
When your habits become intrinsically linked to your identity, maintaining discipline gets significantly easier. Why? Because it feels like a natural, authentic expression of who you are, rather than some external rule you're trying to follow.
Can you give us some examples of how we might make that identity shift?
Certainly. So instead of just saying, I am trying to exercise 3 times a week, you can start to internalize the identity. I am a person who values their health and prioritizes regular exercise.
Okay.
Instead of thinking, I want to learn guitar, cultivate the identity. I'm a musician learning my craft. Or instead of, I need to eat healthier, start identifying as, I am someone who nourishes their body with wholesome foods.
I see the shift.
When your habits align with your core identity, the motivation becomes much more intrinsic. Disciplined action flows more naturally from that self-perception. It's less about forcing yourself and more about being yourself.
That's a really profound shift in perspective, moving motivation from an external target to an internal belief.
Exactly.
Now, earlier you mentioned the neuroscience behind habits. Could you dive a little deeper into that? How does the brain actually form these patterns?
Absolutely. It's fascinating stuff. Developing self-discipline isn't just about sheer willpower. It really helps to understand the basic mechanics of how our brains form and maintain habits. A key concept is the cue routine reward loop.
Cue routine reward.
Okay, it's a 3-part neurological cycle that basically governs our habitual behaviors. It starts with a cue, that's the trigger, the signal that kicks off the behavior. It could be a time of day, a place, an emotion, the people around you, even just the preceding action in a sequence.
Okay, so the cue starts the engine. What's next?
Following the cue is the routine. That's the actual behavior itself, physical, mental, or emotional. It's the specific pattern of activity your brain has learned to associate with that particular cue.
And then comes the reward, I assume.
Exactly. The reward is the positive feedback your brain gets right after doing the routine. This could be a feeling of pleasure, satisfaction, relief from a negative feeling, anything your brain finds desirable. And the reward is critical because it reinforces the connection
Between the cue and the routine.
between the cue, the routine, and the positive outcome. It makes it much more likely you'll repeat that behavior next time you encounter the cue. This is the fundamental loop behind all habits, the good ones and the bad ones.
So understanding this loop, how does that help us build self-discipline?
By consciously identifying your triggers, those cues that lead to habits you want to change, you can then start to intentionally modify your response, the routine.
Replace the old routine.
Often, yes, actively replacing old unwanted habits with new, more positive ones when that cue pops up. The critical part, though, is making sure that the new routine is consistently followed by a reward your brain finds satisfying. That positive reinforcement helps build and strengthen the new, more beneficial loop.
And if we keep doing that consistently, the new loop gets stronger in our brain.
Precisely. That's neuroplasticity in action. The brain's amazing ability to reorganize itself, to form new neural connections throughout life. Consistent practice of these new positive routines actually leads to physical, structural changes in your brain over time.
Wow.
It strengthens the neural pathways associated with self-discipline, making those desired behaviors more automatic, less reliant on conscious, effortful control. So yeah, effectively cultivating self-discipline involves understanding and strategically using these brain mechanisms to reshape our habits.
That's truly fascinating. So by becoming aware of this cue routine reward cycle, we can be much more strategic, more intentional about building the habits we actually want.
Exactly. It's about understanding the drivers of our behavior and then consciously working to design and reinforce new, better neurological loops. It shifts us from being sort of passive victims of our habits to being active architects of them.
So pulling all these threads together now, what would be your ultimate guidance for someone truly committed to building lifelong self-discipline? What's their personal roadmap look like?
Okay, crafting that lasting foundation, I think it involves integrating several key principles. Focus on making those micro commitments we talked about, small, achievable actions that build momentum and confidence.
Right.
Utilize implementation intentions. Those are the if-then plans. If situation X happens, then I will do behavior Y. They really reduce the need for in-the-moment decisions.
Takes the guesswork out.
It does. And maybe explore temptation bundling. That's where you pair a task you find less appealing with something you genuinely enjoy doing at the same time, like only listening to your favorite podcast while exercising.
And this whole framework applies broadly, right? Not just to one area.
Oh, absolutely. Apply this understanding to all the domains that matter to you. Your career growth, your physical health, your mental well-being, your finances. Leverage the tools available digital apps for tracking, accountability systems with friends or mentors.
And be ready for setbacks.
Definitely. Recognize that setbacks are normal. Understand the idea of ego depletion or willpower fatigue that our self-control can dip. Practice self-compassion when you stumble. Stay flexible. Be willing to recalibrate your strategies. And keep seeking inspiration from others who embody the discipline you aspire to.
It really sounds like an ongoing journey of self-awareness and constant adaptation.
It truly is. And ultimately, I think it's essential to reframe how we even think about self-discipline. While it might initially sound restrictive.
Yeah, it can sound like deprivation.
Right. But it is actually a pathway to greater freedom.
Freedom. How so?
It frees you from the chains of impulsivity, from the regret of procrastination, from the stagnation that comes when you don't actively chase your goals. It creates the mental space, the practical capacity for real personal growth, for more joy, for a life lived with greater intention and purpose. It really boils down to consistently making deliberate choices, even when they feel hard in the moment, all in service of your long-term vision for yourself.
That's a really empowering way to look at it, actually.
And remember, you don't have to be extreme. You don't have to be perfect or overly rigid. You just have to be consistent. Consistent effort in the direction you want to go.
That's all we have for today's episode. Thank you for joining us. Click on the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you.